Great, thank you. Mrs. Martin, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Bucks. Present. England. Fowler.
Present.
Williams.
Present.
Murray.
Present.
Klein.
Present.
Erdman.
Here.
Marlowe.
Here.
Nam.
Present.
All members present.
Great, thank you. First item on the agenda tonight is the adoption of this evening's agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second? Second, thank you, Director England. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please indicate with an aye or a yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We'll move now to item 3. This is the presentations for this evening. First one, do we have?
I got it.
Okay, great. Dr. Metz.
Received something in the mail recently from PSBA, and I'll just read a little bit. PSBA's honor roll of school board service program honors school board directors for long-term service and dedication to their local districts and communities. Through the presentation of a certificate, we show our appreciation for the commitment and dedication of these public servants year after year. When school directors reach 8 years of service, they are presented with an honor roll certificate. I have 2 of those tonight. I do want to note before I hand those out that at 24 years of service, you get a plaque. So if you'd like to stay till 24 years, you may get a plaque instead of a certificate. We have 2 school board members that have hit the 8-year mark, and they are Stacy Murray and Nate Erdman. Hang on.
16 to go.
Okay. Tyler, how are we on Crabtree? Okay, we're gonna skip Crabtree and we're gonna go to Brad. Where's Brad Remick? There he is. Brad, you got a presentation for us.
Oh, there you go. Got it. All this new technology. This is a beautiful place. So congratulations on that. It's an honor actually to be here at the first meeting here. So thank you very much for that. With me is Melissa Hughes. She's the brains of the operation. So she's here tonight to help me go through the presentation as we pivot from the elementary projects that we finance to the secondary schools, the high school and middle school project, and trying to map out for you a plan of how we might want to think about financing those projects that you're considering. So before you is a handout that we just put in front of everybody tonight. It has some information in it that Melissa and I are going to go through. There's page numbers on the bottom right-hand side, and page number 2 is the interest rate chart that you're probably tired of seeing from me, but nonetheless, it's something we try and share with you as to what's going on in the marketplace as it relates to municipal bonds. The chart I've been focusing on lately is the top chart. And that's called what's called the yield curve. And what happens there is you plot the interest rates from year 1 all the way out to year 30, and then draw a line, and that's what's called the yield curve. One thing that you'll notice, because the gray bars show highs and lows, the red shows historic average, and the blue shows you where we are today. One thing you'll notice on the blue, you'll notice it's a little bit higher than the red historically. And that's really the effect of what's going on with the Federal Reserve, and they're raising interest rates. So that's how they're impacting. And this is important for a reason I'll get to in just a moment. But the blue line still remains below historic averages for the long term, because when you do a bond, as you know, you usually do it over a longer period of time. And I'll give you an update as why that's important. The page number 3 is your existing indebtedness that you already have. Columns number 4 and 5, if you'll notice those were the bonds that financed this building that we're in today for these projects, as well as the athletic projects. So that's what the 21 and 22 bond did. But we just want to kind of reiterate where we are today for setting up the next phase of financing. Page number 4 I apologize, turning at landscape here. What we did here was we got information from Crabtree as the projected spend for the secondary school projects. It's called what we call a draw schedule. And we really wanted to make sure we put this together for you, because one of the things that's a little bit different than a couple of years ago is because, remember I mentioned that blue line's a little higher on the left? You're actually able to earn some interest earnings nowadays on your bond proceeds. So when you get the money, as you spend it, you can invest it. And there's certain rules that go along with it. But it's important for us now to think about the fact that we may be able to earn some interest on the money when you borrow it to help offset how much you need to borrow. Okay, so that's kind of important, because the less we have to borrow and the more we can earn an interest, that's helpful to the district, obviously, because that's less debt that you would have. So we wanted to make sure that we had started incorporating this as we go into the high school, middle school project, secondary school project. So what we have here is the uses of funds. Those shows the projected draw that Crabtree is estimating. It's only an estimate. It's very rough, but it gives us something to work from. And then we talk about when we might fund the projects under the sources. So for example, in column 6, you'll notice what we're going to show you is 3 $15 million bond issues that would fund the projects that at the current estimates. Okay, I know that there's still ways to go in terms of where we are, but and then we add in column 7 interest earnings. Right now, the interest earnings that are available are higher than 3.5%. But we wanted to be a little bit conservative there because this project is going to take some time. The one thing that's important, and 15 million is kind of an important number, because the general rule when you borrow money on a tax exempt basis is that if you borrow money, let's say at 4.5%, and let's say you invest it at 5%, you can only keep the 4.5%. You have to rebate, is what it's called, the additional 0.5%. That's what those are the IRS rules. However, if you're under 15 million or less in a calendar year, under the IRS rules, you're considered a small issuer. And that means if you borrow at 4.5 and you invested 5, you can keep all 5, as long as you do it within 3 years. Okay, so to the extent we can make that work, and to the extent we can, earn that kind of an interest rate on the bond proceeds, that further reduces the amount of money we need to borrow. So there's kind of some thought as to why we did that in terms of slicing it up that way, as well as it kind of allows you to phase the payment into the budget a little bit over more time. So there is some thought as to why that would be an advantage possibly for the district. And we put on page number 5 here, as I turn along, this is a page, has a lot of numbers on it. You may recall from seeing this in the past, but it's our projection of what your borrowing capacity would be under state law. And we know that we want to make sure that we meet those state law guidelines and so forth. And as we get towards the right in 3 to 4 years from now, there's a situation where we're getting possibly close or over, depending on how revenue grows. So again, a lot of these things that I'm talking about, interest earnings and things of that nature, are going to hopefully help close the gap to make sure that we comply with those rules in terms of the capacity. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And, there are some strategies that we can utilize to help us get to the point that we want to get to as we go through the high school, middle school project. So with that, I was going to let Melissa talk about the numbers on the color pretty page.
Thank you all. So as Brad said, I'm going to talk about page number 6. I got to lower this. I'm just a little bit shorter than he is. So this page should look familiar to y'all, because what we did is we've taken the elementary school project, that's columns numbers 1 through 3, and separated that and said, okay, this is what we've done so far. Now columns 4 through 7 and the corresponding 15 through 21 underneath are what we could look at for a potential secondary school project. You'll notice I'm focused here on column number 15. So if you want to look at that, this is what we could potentially be looking at financing in the 2023 calendar year. So Brad's talked about that $15 million or less limit. So we're really focused on calendar years here. So if we want to take advantage of that, we could settle and get the district funds in early December. And we'll look at a timeline for what that would mean. And then you would have the corresponding payments in column 15. So a small payment yet in your 2024 year, and then larger payments that come online starting in 2025. Subsequently, we'd come back in this illustration next summer for another $15 million piece. And finally, in summer of 2025 for a final portion. And the amount of that borrowing in 2025 would be determined at that time based on a whole bunch of factors, how your bids come in, number one, that'd be the most important one. How much interest earnings we have, because we would know that or have a much better sense at that point. And then finally, how much original issue premium we can generate. So one of the last strategies that we'll use to close the gap on your borrowing capacity is we can issue what's called original issue premium bonds, where you pay a slightly higher coupon than the going market yield. You're indifferent as long as the investors compensate you appropriately. But from a borrowing capacity perspective, original issue premium bonds, they reduce the amount of principal that you issue. So you get the same amount of money up front, but it's all about how the proceeds are split out. One of them is better for solving the problem that you have, which is borrowing capacity. So we would do our best to structure it to get as much premium bonds as we can. That's the technique. We don't know now how much premium bonds we can get. So the borrowing plan as it stands today assumes we don't get any. So we'll work on closing that gap. So these are some of the strategies that we'll use to do that. You can see in column 20 what your total local effort would look like at the end of the day. And that's equated in mills. So this is millage equivalent for the new project, the secondary schools project in column number 21. You might notice that for the borrowing that we're proposing for 2023, it has a little bit of a shorter term. And you may be asking yourselves, can I do better to stretch the debt out a little bit longer from a budgetary perspective? So what we did, because there's still a little bit of uncertainty as to where you're at in the project, we designed a 2023 borrowing that can accommodate if you just did an HVAC project. HVAC has a shorter useful life than something like building a new gym does or building a new cafeteria does. So that accommodates if you just needed to finance something with a shorter useful life. And basically what we're doing is just think about it like a stack of Legos. We're just taking the piece of the stack and it all adds up to be the same at the end of the day. We're just taking the piece that makes the most sense. And so at the end of the day, you get to an estimate of column 20. So let's talk about timing. So as I mentioned, you could get money as soon as, roughly the 1st of December. Working backwards from that, we're here tonight talking to you, potentially as soon as tonight, but, at whatever time makes sense to the board, you could authorize us to proceed with the sample motion above. And you'll notice that sample motion has a blank in it. If you wanted to proceed with this plan, you'd fill in the amount of $15 million because, you'd be proceeding with this small issuer exempt plan. As soon as October the 10th, we could be back with the maximum parameters borrowing resolution. As you may recall, that's the legal debt incurring obligation. And so if it's for $15 million that we're actually going to borrow, that parameters resolution will be for something slightly more because we need the flexibility to get your debt service level at the end of the day. Okay. The soonest we could have a sale would be the week of October the 23rd. And it takes 35 days from there to get funds. So to the extent you want to push things back, we have, I think, about a month of flexibility in the timeline. If you wanted to proceed with a plan that got you some money in calendar year 2023. Brad and I are happy to take any questions you might have.
The only thing I'll say is that it's not on the agenda to vote tonight, so it will definitely be pushing at least to the committee meeting, make a decision at that point.
I have a question, just to verify that I'm understanding this correctly. You mentioned if we take the 3 bonds, 15, 15, and 15, we'll make quite a bit of interest.
Yep.
And on page 4 at the bottom, it lists 605,000. Is that the total amount of interest we'd be making?
We think that's very conservative,
Okay,
but we don't have enough info to make it. Time will tell.
right,
Essentially,
right. No,
yes.
that seems like a decent amount to me. I just
It-
wanted to make sure that that's what that number.
It'll be very
represents.
meaningful. Yes, you're focused on the correct number there.
Okay, and I guess you don't have a magic ball, but as far as you can tell, interest rates are not projected to drop anytime soon, correct?
Yeah, we kind of thought at the beginning of the year we'd see that, but we're not really seeing that, I don't think. I don't think people think the Fed's going to do anything in September, but they may raise again in November. That might not be all bad because that means you maybe earn a little bit more interest. But I think moving kind of swiftly on this one would make sense. Because if you do the math, if we had $15 million and we earned 5%, and that's $60,000. You do it sooner rather than later that you can use. That's what it equates to for a month.
I had another question. You were talking about premium bonds and how many we can get will affect our numbers. What affects how many premium bonds we can get?
So essentially, I love this question. It's so technical. So essentially, it will be determined on what the going market yields are at the time that we sell bonds. So when we talk about the interest rates, we're always focused on the yields, right? And that's what goes up and down. Your coupons, on the last bonds we sold, we had some 5% coupons. And the prior one, we had some 4% and 5% coupons. So your coupons, when they're higher than the going market yields, that's when we generate original issue premium. So on the last two bond issues, we generated original issue premium as well. So it's that differential between those two things that determines that.
Thank you.
Yeah, where it can get confusing is people, when they get a mortgage, you have one interest rate, right? When you have a car loan, you have one interest rate. Municipal bonds are a little different. You have an interest rate that you pay the interest on, and then you sell at a certain price. So if the interest rate that somebody bids is 5, they might pay more than 100 cents on the dollar for that. And we have
And we want them to pay more than 100
cents on the dollar.
That's what happened to us
Right.
with this project, right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
So if we look at page 6, the estimated 2025, $15 million. So that would take us to the $45 million. So that, I just want to confirm that on page 5, I'm sorry, I started on page 6. So that corresponds on page 5 then with column 4. So that's anticipating a July 15th of 2025 borrowing date. That puts us in column 4 on page 5 at 46 million potential borrowing capacity. Okay.
Let's see. So
It's a 46, yeah. So for your $46 million borrowing base. So if you go down to that green line, which is what you should be focused on,
Okay,
remaining borrowing
I
capacity,
see.
where we have that negative in column 4,
that's where we have to close.
that's where we got to close.
So that's the gap we have to close.
Right.
Okay,
And we can do that through a variety of means. The ones we already talked about, you could contribute some cash to the project. Or you could slow portion of it down so we can get into calendar year 2027, because every year your borrowing base grows and old debt pays off.
right,
So
Okay.
that's a July 1 test.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Leanne knows where to track us back.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
I just want to say, I think it's really appropriate to have you, Brad, here and Crabtree, the first meeting that we have inside this new boardroom. We could not have obviously done this project without the help of both of you. So this
Well,
is very appropriate. So welcome.
Thank you. This makes us proud to see what you've accomplished.
Yeah.
This is
Thank you.
great.
Appreciate it.
How we doing on Crabtree? You're good? Okay, Scott.
Oh, good to see everybody. So it's been a while since we've talked about the project as an update. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We've been having biweekly meetings with the administrative team. Our engineers have really been diving deep into the project. Fidavia is helping us out a lot with everything. So we're kind of getting to the point where we're close to the end of the project as far as the design phase, and we're getting ready to go out to bid, and we can talk about the schedule at the end of this, but we felt it was appropriate to give you an update of the design, where we're at, the cost, and just an overall update. So next slide. So just real quick, I'll run through these slides. If you recall, this was the scope of work plans, how we're doing different things in different areas of the building as far as renovation. This green was in the original 7th and 8th grade wing, we're doing an HVAC only. And this is just as a refresher. You'll see some of these spaces have changed, but if you ask me to compare the two, I bet you no one could actually pick out what changed, but I can walk through it. So if you go to the next slide, we'll go quickly through these. So this, it's very difficult to see on here, but there's a lot of area in yellow in here. So yellow is minor renovations. We're going to replace the HVAC systems. We're going to replace with the HVAC, replacing the ceilings. We're doing paint and exterior windows. So next slide. This is actually an orange, but it's showing up as yellow. But this is a moderate renovation. So these are areas where we might be going in and replacing some casework or doing new, more robust systems upgrades, like for instance, a science lab. So this is a different level of renovation where we're not going in and gutting and reconfiguring the space, but it's just a higher level. If you notice, the auditorium is also in this. We talked before about the auditorium as an alternate bid. You know, we're trying to hit a budget, and that's outside of it. Certainly, if we have good numbers on bid day, you'll be able to accept that alternate. But the music suite itself is part of the base bid, and that's also included in those upgrades. So you'll see science labs, life skills, and the FCS lab, and some admin renovations, including that, and then the existing high school locker room areas. Next slide. And then I'm not going to go through each one of these, but these are the heaviest renovation areas where we're basically going to start from scratch. For instance, like the ag science, the main entry vestibule, creating a secure vestibule there. And then some of our real big moves on the project to help make this building operate most efficiently, moving the cafeteria up to the existing middle school locker rooms. You can see at the very north end of the screen there, converting that existing middle school gym into a cafeteria. And then in turn, taking the former location of the kitchen, making that a weight room, and making the existing cafeteria your auxiliary gym. And of course, if you go to the next slide, we'll see the construction of the new addition, which is comprised of the gymnasium, high school gymnasium, high school locker rooms. Actually, a portion of the locker rooms are an existing building, a portion of it's new construction, and then having a new entry for not only new entry for the gymnasium, but that'll also serve as the new public entry for the auditorium as well. And that'll have a connector corridor that connects the new gym to the existing gym. And that existing gym will become the middle school gym. The existing auxiliary gym, of course, will be removed. So this is kind of a all encompassing, not sure where the colors aren't showing up, but we can skip over that slide. Any questions along the way, let me know. So this is just basically a plan, and we'll make sure you get copies of the actual PowerPoint since the colors aren't showing up. This is just an overall plan of the existing building, or excuse me, the proposed building and the final space assignments of classrooms. Go to the next slide. So this is an overall site plan. When we started this project, we were conceptualizing just some minor site work adjacent to where we have the additions. As we're going through the process with the township, they wanted us to go through a full land development submission and treat this as a full land development plan. And as a result, we're having to meet a lot of their ordinances on parking, sidewalks, lighting, a lot of things that we had to do in the elementary school. But it's kind of you'll see later on how it's taken a little bit more of a snowball effect on the budget. So in the kind of west of the baseball field, they wanted us to include more parking because per the ordinance, even though we keep having the same number of gyms, we have a little bit more seating in the main gym. but the seating itself, I mean, excuse me, the parking itself is short of that existing count. So they're wanting us to provide enough parking spaces to meet the ordinance requirement. That's why you see that parking lot to the west of the baseball field. That'll be connected up through the main entrance of the new gymnasium there. And as you recall, the front entrance, the existing front entrance, we're making that a bus loop. That'll be it'll function similarly to how you're doing it now, where in the mornings, that'll be the parent drop off. In the afternoons, that'll be the bus loop. And then the parents will pick up in the loop around the student parking lot. So definitely a lot more scope of work. Steckback's helping us work through that and trying to get us our approvals. That's one thing we'll have to keep an eye on here. We are, as I mentioned, from a scheduling standpoint, we're ready to go out to bid in beginning of October. And that'll allow us to be out to bid in October, throughout October, receive bids at the end of October, ready for a board action in November on award of bids. And then we just need to make sure that land development path runs parallel to that. Certainly, we don't want to be awarding bids if we don't have all of our comments in from the township. So that's something we'll be keeping an eye on, but we're targeting to try to have some sense of approval in line with from the township, in line with awarded bids. You go next slide. So before you move on, so this will be a animation of the interior of the building and some things I'll kind of point out before we start looking through this. So as you know, one of the main goals is obviously to replace the HVAC system that's outdated and basically in need of replacement. You know, it's basically falling apart and really need to do something with it. So with that, all the ceilings are going to come out. So we're looking at ways to improve the overall aesthetic of the building without trying to put too much money into it. So obviously with the ceilings coming out and paint, we're able to do a lot. So you'll see that in the renderings here. And then we'll go through a couple of key spaces to see how we're trying to bring some new life into the building with the design. So if you hit the button, it should play. So the existing entrance is staying the same. As you recall, we're putting a new secure vestibule in here. So that's the first thing you'll see as we come through here. Secure vestibule, a new reception to the right. The main office will still be across the hall. You can see here how we're trying to use paint and ceilings to create a new look and feel. You know, we're already going to be replacing the ceiling, so that's why we're picking that as one of the battles of improving the space. Most of the existing corridors remain the same. A new coat of paint, lockers will remain the same. One of the other things is you have a lot of circulation intersections throughout the building. So we're trying to make some key nodes and wayfinding and use that as an opportunity to bring some design into it. You'll see, so the media center on the as we walk by here. Another key intersection here is on the way to the new cafeteria. We're opening up this intersection a little bit to allow more student flow through the corridors. That's also where the Deja Brew is going to be relocated to. As we go through these doors, this is your existing locker rooms to the right. That'll now become an LGI food court and kitchen straight ahead. And you'll see as we go into the cafeteria, which was the former middle school gymnasium. With the food court adjacent to it. This is looking at the new gymnasium entrance. So as you approach this, you'll have another vestibule here. You can see the lobby of the gymnasium off to the right. There's the connector corridor off to the left, connecting the existing gym to everything. And you'll see, straight down that hallway is down to the auditorium. So once again, incorporating some wayfinding signage, some of your new revamp logos. And you'll notice we're trying to get both the boys and girls logos incorporated everywhere. This is looking, now we'll go into the new gymnasium. You'll see some of the graphics and design we're trying to incorporate here as well. Seating for 800. And then now we'll walk up that new addition corridor. Music's on your left here. We're actually in the kind of outside parking lot right now, but then as you walk up through here, this will be the path that the public would take to get to the auditorium. See, incorporating some more graphics down the hallway there. Have a little kind of small seating area out here. You'll see as we come around the corner. This is actually where your existing entrance vestibule to the auditorium is. And then once again, bringing in some ceiling forms, trying to bring in the school colors and try to modernize the space. And this will be your auditorium lobby here. And then we'll finish up around the corner. This is your existing cafeteria that's being converted into the auxiliary gym. And so the administration has conceptualized how you would use that have wrestling mats down most of the time, have a cardio area to one side. So you'll see the window, as part of the window replacement, there's windows that you see out to the one side, and then the existing kitchen converted into the expanded weight room. Any questions on that, on the renderings? I think there was one slide we skipped over. Oh, there it is. Pretty important slide. Okay. So where we're at with the cost. So this is kind of a breakdown. You'll see the first kind of 4 or 5 line items there deal with the areas of renovation and the different levels of renovation. So you kind of get a feel for where the majority of the money is, and that is in that minor renovation area. So the majority of the building is getting that HVAC replacement, window replacement, ceilings, paint. And so that's the majority of the building. That's about $11 million. There's the small 6th grade wing, which is about $2.6 million in HVAC only, where we don't need to do the paint and the extra electrical upgrades. And then the moderate renovation, about $4 million, and then the heavy renovation, about $8.5 million. And then you move into the new construction costs of about 9.8. And then after that, we have site costs around $2 million. As we started this out, that was about a $500,000 allowance that we were conceptualizing. Then we have some contingency for escalation and estimating contingency. And that puts us about $42.2 million for the construction cost itself. So that's what we would expect to see on bid day. And I'll note also that Fidavia has been helping us out along with this and kind of following along with the estimate and providing us updates where they see different trades, different HVAC MEP trades and where the cost per square foot should be. Then we have a line item for construction costs. That's your testing, balancing, any construction contingencies. We have about $1 million for construction contingency. If you recall, we set aside some money for the elementary school. We didn't use it all up. We had hit some big site work issues that we used a lot of it up, but we didn't use it all up. Here we have about the same contingency because, obviously when you go into existing building, you don't know what you're going to come up against when you open up the walls. So we have that set aside. That gets us to a subtotal about 45.5. And then we have the project soft cost that deals with your financing fees, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, design team fees, and different other associated soft costs with the project. So right now we're just shy of a $50 million estimate based on the numbers provided by Fidavia. So if we go one more slide. And just summarizes some of the changes that led to, I think the last time that we presented costs for the board was quite some time ago, but we were around 42 or 43, I think, at that time. So some of the changes that occurred between now and then are obviously the renovation level of scope of work. For instance, like as we got more into the project and started meeting with teachers, we realized that there were some other classrooms that really needed to be addressed, like family consumer science and life skills that we weren't originally anticipating in the scope. So some of those scope of work things happen. Kitchen equipment, we are planning on reusing a lot of the kitchen equipment after our consultant surveyed a lot of that and determined that there is some that can be reused, but not to the extent that we originally anticipated. So that added some cost. The addition did increase in size due to some different programmatic requirements that required some increased space. And then one of the other things that as our HVAC engineers got more in depth into the project, that building has a really low structure height. In other words, structure sits at a spot, then you have the joist, the bottom of the joist, then you have your ceilings, and there's hardly any space in there currently. So right now you don't have any ducted HVAC systems in there. They're all in the unit classrooms that just vent to the outside. So as soon as you put a ducted system in there, now you need more ceiling space. So in turn, we didn't have enough space to run both the supply and return ductwork. So what happens is we're doing the ceiling plenum as a return plenum. So with that, the code requires that any cabling within that ceiling has to be plenum rated. So as a result, we weren't anticipating replacing all the cabling in the ceiling, but now that we're using it as plenum, we're going to have to. So that was a pretty considerable increase in cost for that. We talked about the township required site improvements. And then as Fidavia's working on our numbers, just thinking that some of the trades in the complex renovation are going to cost a little bit more than we originally anticipated. A lot of information. It's questions.
I know there's a couple areas that we didn't get to yet. Like at one point you'll have
Yep.
some more renderings of like the music in that section and
Yep.
other things. It just, not that it's forgotten about it. We've been talking about it, just we
Yeah.
haven't finished the renderings yet. So.
Yeah, we have a acoustical consultant out of Philadelphia who's involved in analyzing the acoustics of the existing auditorium. So we just received their report about a week and a half ago. So we're digesting that. And as we understand what they want to implement, we'll begin developing the design of that space as well.
So just out of curiosity, what was the seating number that made the township require additional parking?
I think it's the fact that when you look at their ordinance and if you occupy all the spaces at once, so in other words, your current seating doesn't meet the ordinance with the number of parking. So it wasn't, if you look at the net increase, we're only going from 600 and some in the gym to 800. So we're only adding a couple hundred spaces. However, we were already behind the 8 ball because you didn't have enough parking for your current seating for assemblies.
So the artistic rendering of the hallways, were the lights representative of a different lighting technology, something like this? One of the things that I love about the elementary is the light that comes in here.
So good question. So some of those key areas, those intersections, we will be introducing some LED lighting and some more feature lighting. But that is one of the things that we decided as an alternate bid was to do LED lighting throughout. So some of those corridor lights will remain the existing lights. And I think that alternate's estimated, it's a pretty hefty one, probably about $2 million to replace all the lighting. But that is one of the other alternates we'll be bidding to do the lighting of the whole school.
And that contemplates potential utility rebates.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know if the district currently gets any rebates through Act 129 monies, but that's something that we can pursue with sometimes when you do a lighting replacement, get PP&L rebates.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. What's the cafeteria size of the new cafeteria, which is the old middle school gym, compared to the cafeteria size of the current high school caf, like square footage, Are we gaining a lot of space or are they similarly sized?
So you're asking the existing middle school gym compared to the existing cafeteria?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is larger. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know offhand. I can get you those numbers.
So the new caf would be larger than the old?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And one of the other things, obviously with 6th grade moving out, you're able to do 2 and 2 grades at a time in your lunches. That makes it a little.
And then you had said about lockers. There's no lockers being added in the hallways.
No.
Because if there were, I know where I work, if I build a school nowadays, I don't think I'd put lockers in.
Yeah.
Kids don't use them anymore.
We rarely do any schools with lockers anymore. We
Really?
just put
Okay.
We put a bank at the front and those who choose to use them want to use them, but yeah.
And then, I think he answered this question that well, how, the additional parking, that would have to be made whether there's new construction or not because it, or
No,
because of,
no, you only have to do it because you're going through a land development process.
Right.
So if you were just doing a renovation only project and not doing additions and affecting the site, then you're basically grandfathered in. They can't, the township can't go to every place.
but
and
as
say-
soon as you put a little addition on, it turns
Yeah.
into,
Yeah.
we have to add that
Right.
parking lot.
Correct.
now. So it really is a moot point. What's it cost to add the parking lot? Because it doesn't matter because it has to be done. 'Cause we're
Yeah, as
doing
soon
an
as you
addition.
do the addition for the gymnasium, then you're into the
Okay.
land development and the townships.
I mean, the
Right.
township could waive it. They waived it initially for the building now, because we
Right.
don't have enough parking per code.
But
And the
they're not
parking
waived.
spaces we have are actually not as wide as code. So they did at one point, but I don't think they will at this
Right.
point.
Then my only other. Just kind of thinking out loud, what do you, and I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm just kind of thinking the elementary numbers, but a new build versus the renovations. Like if we're spending 45 million on this and the elementary school was 50 million, let's say hypothetically, maybe we own 30 acres that we bought for $2 million. Could you build a new building for 60 million, 70 million?
I think it'd be probably a little north of that,
Would it?
but yeah, it's always gonna be less expensive unless you have some real structural or gymnastics to go through, but it's always gonna be less expensive to renovate. But we're seeing that, with where labor shortages are going and things like that it's costing more and more to renovate than it used to in the past. So
Well,
that
that's-
gap is
yeah, that's what I
narrow.
was getting at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, without sitting down and
right.
planning it out, Yeah, and the tricky part is with the new site, you're talking about certainly the building. The cost of the building itself and building a new building versus renovating would probably be a smaller gap, but with a new site, all new site work, paving, drives, utilities, all that stuff is where you get into some more significant costs.
That's all I have.
Well, in case it hasn't been said, while you're here, thank you for this school. On time, on budget, really appreciate it. It's beautiful. I think I can speak on behalf of the board and say, we really appreciate it. Appreciate the work that you all did and it's beautiful building that you.
Thank you. And I'll give you guys a round of applause. You pushed us really hard on this, if you recall, one of the first designs we brought in was, you thought it looked too institutional and that was really refreshing to hear from a board to say, hey, this is an elementary school. We want this to be more like an elementary school. So what you see there is more of a effort from you guys as well as us. So we thank you for pushing us.
Thank you. And appreciate the presentation. Really appreciate the work.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, I have a surprise presentation. He was at cross country and we weren't sure you're gonna make it, but Carter, you're here. He's our student rep, Carter Kubica. Do you have anything for us tonight? How was cross country? All right.
Our boys team did win. Good evening, board. Last Friday, the student council had our second annual tailgate. Despite the overcast of the weather, it didn't rain. So I think this is pretty much a success for us. As well, at the end of last school year, we elected new officers. Our president, junior Katie Eisenhower, our vice president, senior Island Zemba. We have two secretaries this year, sophomore Nathan Swank and senior Grace Horenjik. We also have returning treasurer who's also a senior, Harley Bode. And I am now the student rep as our old student rep is studying abroad in Germany. Upcoming events, September 29th is our hall decorating for homecoming. Within the next 2 weeks, Friday the 13th is our homecoming pep rally. And then the next day, the Saturday, is our homecoming dance. Thank you.
No notes, Carter. Well done.
I was just gonna say that in my 8 years of doing this, that's the best presentation I've seen. It wasn't read and mumbled. I think you might have a future in public speaking, Carter. That was good, seriously.
Okay, item 4, superintendent's report. Dr. Messinger.
He also is really good with sports statistics. If you need a fantasy team, ask Carter. He'll tell you who to get. We have nothing going on, so there's nothing really to report. Leanne, go ahead. You go first.
Just real quick, the only thing on the financial reports I wanted to draw your attention to is our healthcare cost. If you look at that one-page summary where I break them out into the salary and healthcare and just charter schools there, four main categories, you will see that our healthcare is alarmingly high, and we are about 40% through our budget 2 months in. So hopefully we will get some of that reimbursed back to us on the back end, and that we all get healthy and stay healthy for us and for our employees and their families.
Thanks for that good news. From our standpoint, I mean, I think everybody knows at this point what we've, had going on the past month. We did have a well-attended community night with what we believe to be over 1,000 people that had walked through. Open house for elementary was incredibly well attended. Didn't know where to put all the cars. Had a lot of people here. A lot of people stayed just to walk around, to play on the playground. It was a very good night. And I thank the both actually buildings, because we had our senior secondary school, middle school, and high school also had their back to school. And just want to thank the teachers, administrators, custodians for having everything ready, secretaries. I think also, parent pickup, dismissal with buses and bus drop off, all of that. There's always some glitches the first week. This has been, I think, the smoothest in a long time. I know that certainly since I've been here, and I think a couple of years before I was here, there were some struggles. I have a couple of bus drivers. Well, we had two. Now we have one. So thank you guys for your hard work. I know you guys were out looking at routes, trying to figure out, all of that, and that's tough. Our experienced drivers, I think probably it's easier than our newbies, but they're getting used to it. And so we're continuing to work on times and all that. But I thought overall it was a very good start to the year. And I've already had opportunities for people to come out. Had our first home football game. It was nice that the lights didn't go out. And we had a concession stand running that night. If you have not gotten the funnel cake fries, stop and get some funnel cake fries. They are very good. I think our next home game is 2 weeks, not this weekend, but the weekend after. That's it.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to item 5, old business. Is there any old business to bring to the board this evening? Okay, hearing none, we will move to public comment. I always introduce public comment by reading from our school policy 903. All individuals wishing to participate in the meeting shall register their intent with the board secretary by 3 p.m. today, unless specifically advertised differently. That notice shall include the name of the participant, topic to be addressed, and group affiliation if applicable. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer, that is me, and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name and group affiliation if applicable. I just want to note for the record that you do not have to state your address. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 4 minutes duration. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question school directors individually. I understand that we do have one item for public comment. That is Ms. Mara Diffendahl. Did I pronounce your name correctly? All right. Well, you get to step up and tell me how to really say it.
Well, good evening. My name is Mara, whichever. It doesn't bother me at all. My name is Mara Diffendahl. And then I already forgot what I was supposed to address. I apologize. Okay. I'm just here to talk tonight about essentially student progress is where I'm at. So I guess I'll just go with there, start there. I'm here tonight because I seek to obtain better understanding as to what tangible processes our school district has in place to ensure our children are being set up for success. I seek to become better informed as to what tools the district is utilizing to ensure our children are comprehending and developing appropriately within their age groups. I would like to know what the district has developed to ensure our children are equipped with the tools to efficiently stand on their own after they graduate. I went through your website and I did find the 2021 to 2027 long-term plan available on there. This 12-page document contains a lot of ideas that look great on paper. However, the document, as well as your website, lack the details that I, as a parent, am looking for. The details that would lay out exactly how the school district is ensuring that our children are provided with a quote, high quality education that provides opportunities to demonstrate learning in varied and challenging ways, unquote. That's directly from that plan. When I attended the open house last week, what I saw did very little to quell my concerns. I saw teachers who were frustrated for various reasons. Many expressed their concerns were not being addressed. I listened to how the teachers are limited in being able to thoroughly educate children due to the standards in place, which do not seem to have any benefit for them or the kids. Even if the students don't present understanding, the curriculum calls for the teacher to move on. The teachers that I spoke with were all very willing and eager to help the children, but expressed that it's difficult to get the students engaged in learning. In your long-term plan, there is mention of consistent use of high-quality, standards-aligned curriculum and instructional materials in all K-12 content areas. Is your opinion of a high-quality use the use of 7th grade textbooks from 2002? My 12-year-old 7th grader was born in 2011. Pluto has not been categorized as a planet since 2006. Is a classroom where a teacher has placed bed sheets and curtains over her walls to cover the paint chips, how the district is providing support to instructional leaders in their efforts to achieve continuous improvement in areas of academics. Some of my daughter's 7th grade peers are currently at a 2nd grade reading level. You have 12-year-olds who can read at a 2nd grade reading level, which means that they haven't progressed at all since COVID, since before COVID. Education stopped at 2nd grade. Kids were physically returned to school for the 2021-2022 school year. What is the school district doing to ensure that the kids are catching up to their grade level and actually being able to present understanding of the material that they're given? Why is it that the more questions I ask, the more I find that aside from processes that look good on paper, we seem to be dropping the ball to ensure that we're doing right by our youth, their future, and their ability to independently prosper in society, or to prosper independently in society? There's always pressure and talk about college. Why are we setting them up to have to pay exuberant costs of money to have to catch up in college when the school system should be ensuring their comprehension now? We just need to make sure that we're doing right by them and laying out the proper path in order for them to follow and actually prosper. This brings me to my largest concern, which is the school issued laptops. 30 out of every 100 kids, according to your proficiency levels, are grade level proficient in math, and 49 out of every 100 are proficient at grade reading level. All are below the state average, which in your defense isn't much better. My daughter can't access puzzle or word games due to the filters in place, but I can go on her computer and go on YouTube and look up 40 kills in 15 minutes, 20 kills in 15 minutes, whatever comes up at that point in time. I can look up the Tide Pod challenge. I can watch people eat Tide Pods on my 12-year-old's computer. Children are very easily influenced. The district made the decision to allow the children to take the laptops home over the summer. What measures does the district have in place to ensure that these tools are actually being used in the educational best interest of our children? What evidence can you show me that reflects that our children are improving?
4 minutes.
What can I show you what can we do to show that our children are improving now that the laptops have been issued? How are laptops an improvement over textbooks? And all I want to say is that I'm frustrated. And I just want to know what we're doing for them, because if I'm sending my child to school, I'm under the assumption that they're being taught the same way that I was taught, that they can actually succeed and go out into the world and that they don't go look for a job and barely know how to spell their name. What you're doing with the buildings is beautiful. And I realize I'm up with my 4 minutes, but please just do something for the kids.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you also. I mean, you and I have met a couple of times and we can continue to meet, and every time we talk, you have good questions. And I actually encouraged her to, some of the questions philosophically speaking, are things that we've debated over and over in my education in terms of getting teaching certification or principal certification or even superintendent certification. And I think a lot of us share the same frustrations in terms of some of the stuff the state has done, but certainly, certainly lots of questions and lots of good discussions there. So.
Yes, thank you for your comments. I'm sure many of us will be willing to stick around afterwards to talk afterwards if you'd like to. Okay. Yep. Okay, moving on to items for board action. This is item 7. It should be noted that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 84 of 1986. By notice of the president, the following action requires a voice vote. All votes in favor shall be stated with an aye or yes. All votes opposed shall be stated with a nay or no. All members abstaining shall state I abstain when prompted. The votes will be recorded in the minutes as a unanimous roll call vote unless there are any votes in opposition or abstention. If necessary, the president may subsequently call for a roll call vote to be recorded in the minutes. We will move to item 8. This is the monthly items.
Yeah, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3 are our normal minutes, student activity count and cash disbursements.
Okay, are there any questions regarding item 8?
Mhm.
Okay, is there a motion to approve items 8.1 through 8.3? Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Erdman. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, all in favor of approving items 8.1 through 8.3, please indicate with an aye or a yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Item 9, budget and finance.
Yeah, Dr. Bastek Jones is actually, she was going to present tonight these agreements, but we're going to put her on the spot. But we have a second open house tonight for, in case people were on vacation or whatnot. So we have a couple of administrators over there tonight running that. And I did see some people walking through. So I will do it at this time. And the first two, A and B, are student service agreements with New Story and Hoffman Academy. They are annual that we do for each school year. The second one is an agreement that we MOU with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, that we use some of their services. I have tried to get them involved as mentors and buddies for some of our students that we feel would benefit from that. And 9.3 is our annual Title III agreement.
Okay. Any questions regarding 9.1 through 9.3? Okay, is there a motion to adopt items 9.1 through 9.3? Thank you, Director England. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Marlowe. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of adopting 9.1 through 9.3, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Item 10, building and grounds, there is no items for this month, so we'll move to item 11, extracurricular.
Just a couple of assistant coaches, JV, junior high coaches to approve. And then some trips to approve, several FFA trips. And then I see Ms. Snyder here tonight and a Spanish club to Costa Rica in 2025.
Okay, any questions? Okay, motion to approve items 11.1 and 11.2. Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Klein is the second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving 11.1 and 11.2, indicate with a yes or an aye, please.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion approves unanimously. Item 12, curriculum.
12.1 is final adoption of those policies that are listed there. 12.2 is tentative adoption of 6/18, 19, 20, and 21. 12.3 is the curriculum final adoption that we've had on prior to this discussion back in August. And 12.4 is a list of library books that we'll be adding to our elementary library.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the curriculum items? Okay. Any questions? Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve items 12.1 through 12.4?
Motion to approve 12.1 through 12.4.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Marlowe, second. Thank you. Okay, is there any discussion? Okay,
Is the plan to vote on these all in one?
unless there's a desire to move them separately.
You may state no to any of those items if you'd like.
You can indicate with your vote, yes, and when I ask for any opposed, if you're opposed, you can say opposed to item 12 point, whichever.
May I make a comment just from
Yeah,
the
this is
discussion part?
discussion.
I can
Yeah.
do that.
Absolutely.
So my comments are related to the science curriculum for grades 7 through 9 and biology. So I will just want to say that I appreciate the effort that was made to include a learning target that allows students to critique the evidence that supports the theory of evolution. However, it seems as though this statement or this learning target is only a part of the biology curriculum, unless I missed it. And if so, I apologize, but that was the only place I could see it written was in the biology curriculum. And unfortunately, including such a learning target does not change my objection to this curriculum. I just want to take a moment again to reiterate that my objection to this curriculum, specifically, again, just speaking about the science curriculum for grades 7 through 9 and then biology. My objection is no reflection upon our teacher, staff, or administrators. I have nothing against them. I know that our district has very capable and passionate teachers, and they will do a fantastic job, and they will provide this instruction on topics like evolution and natural selection, knowing that it's required by the State Department of Education. I get it. I understand all of that. My objection lies within the mandated curriculum. And additionally, I find it very disheartening that our students are taught and tested only on one view of origin of life and life itself and the sustainability of life, especially since that one view is false. The one view is false. And our government has bought into a lie, and it has invested millions, if not billions of dollars to support and advance a lie. What our government has forgotten is that science tends to change over time. Not the scientific method, rather the results of genuinely applying the scientific theory and method to various systems of life. What passes for science in one generation often changes in another and in another and another. Some 600 years ago, science says that the world was flat and that leeches were the best form of medicine. 50 years ago, scientists predicted that we would be driving around in flying cars. The founder of IBM once predicted that there would be no need for more than 5 computers in the entire world, much less a computer in every home or even in every pocket. We heard earlier that Pluto is no longer classified as a planet. Science changes over time. 2 of the greatest scientific minds have acknowledged that there is plausible evidence for an intelligent designer or creator as alternative views against evolution. Isaac Newton once said, "Gravity explains the motions of the planets, but it cannot explain who set the planets into motion." He goes on to say that God governs all things and knows all that is or can be done, unquote. Albert Einstein once admitted that he was convinced that the universe was so elegantly put together, there had to be a supreme intelligence who designed it. If gravity were slightly more powerful, the universe would completely collapse into a ball. If gravity were slightly less powerful, the universe would fly apart and there would be no stars and no planets. In other words, gravity is precisely as strong as it needs to be. And if the ratio of what they call electromagnetic force to the strong force was off by a fraction of a percent, life would not exist. What are the odds that that would happen all by itself or through something called a Big Bang? The precisions of our universe, the precisions of the universe, therefore, at least makes it logical to conclude that there is a creator or intelligent designer. As I said before, I believe we do a great injustice to our students by adhering strictly to the mandated curriculum. And again, I understand why. But by not offering our students the opportunity for critical thinking, I just think we do a great injustice to our students. And as I mentioned before, I'm not looking to micromanage our teachers. I don't want to micromanage teachers. I don't have the time nor the expertise to write curriculum. But as a school board member, I'm being asked to approve curriculum And I cannot consciously approve something that I don't agree with. I find it to be false. I find it to be a lie. And I just don't see, I cannot consciously vote for that. So when we do have the vote, I will be voting no for the science curriculum grades 7 through 9 and for biology.
Okay, thank you, Director Williams, for your comments. Any other comments? Okay, what we will do then, since there's been discussion on item 12.3, I will break the vote down into two separate votes. The first vote will be for items 12.1, 12.2, and 12.4. And then the second vote will be for item 12.3. So all those in favor of approving items 12.1, 12.2, and 12.4, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. My vote is also a yes. Okay, on item 12.3, all those in favor of approving item 12.3, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed?
No. No for grades 7 through 9 and biology for science curriculum.
Okay. I only registered one no vote on that. Was there another? Okay. With that, then items 12.1, 12.2, and 12.4 carry unanimously. Item 12.3 is approved on an 8-1 vote. Okay, thank you. We will move now to item 13, human relations. Dr. Reese, that
Thank you.
sounds good.
In today's state of education and the employment hurdles that we have, I'm very happy to report that we started the year fairly well staffed, and that's thanks to the hard work of Mrs. Bruce and the administrative team. What you have before you in 13.1A are the ratify and approve employments. These are folks that have already started working for us to get us started at full capacity for the year. The first one is Audrey Shirk, Becca Scalise, Alyssa Perkins, and redesignate Missy Past from a paraprofessional to a building support substitute. Redesignate Tiffany Hogg to Dean of Students for the 23-24 school year. Redesignate Katrin Stratton Brown from a long-term substitute to a temporary professional employee. In item B, there are 3 names for additional. Kira Perkins for long-term substitute, Tina Kramer for general education aide, and Justin Bruce to fill the assistant elementary principal position. Are there any questions about 13.1? 13.2 is the substitute list that we approve monthly. And 13.3 is to grant tenure to Marissa Yingst. 13.4 is to honor the resignation of Lisa Cobal and Alyssa Butts. We wish them both well in their future employments. 13.5 is to appoint mentors for Christy Demakowitz for Rebecca Scalise and Charity Stoller for Jeff Wild. 13.6 is to honor the academic credit advancement as required by the CBA. Are there any questions on the additional items under number 13? Thank you.
Okay, given that there are no questions, is there a motion? We'll do this as a single motion. I do understand that there may be some abstentions in the midst of this, but we'll do this as a single motion. Is there a motion to adopt items 13.1 through 13.6?
Motion to adopt 13.1 to 13.6.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second? Okay, thank you, Director Klein. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving items 13.1 through 13.6, please indicate with a yes or an aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Any abstentions?
I will need to abstain from 13.3.
13.3. Okay, thank you, Director Williams. Okay, with that, then 13.1 carries unanimously. 13.2, 13.4, 13.5, and 13.6 are all unanimous. 13.3 is 8 votes yes, 0 votes no, and 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. Item 14.
I just want to, I notice he's in the audience. Welcome, Mr. Bruce, to the elementary team. Appreciate you've been willing to take on that challenge. And Brad mentioned it, but I do want to give Lauren a shout out as well. I know that German position, and we had a teacher and it was emergency certified and had an offer in her certification area. And she actually sent emails across the state to German teachers looking to see if anyone was interested in a change, and found one next door in Tulpahawk, and that was looking for full-time employment with very, very great recommendations. So, and she did that in about 2 days. So it was right before school started. So shout out to her for that. It is also that time of year where we have to do our PSBA elections for officers. Those officers are listed there. I am not familiar with any of those officers, but they're there for you to vote on.
Yeah. Is there a motion to, well, are there any questions regarding item 14, first of all? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the slate of candidates for the PSBA elections? Thank you, Director Bucks. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Marlowe. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving item 14, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 15.
Our LVC student teaching placements for the fall.
Okay, great. Okay, reports from representatives, change order committee. We shouldn't have anything but Director Bucks. Just wanted to
Nothing.
check in. Great, thank you. Okay, CTC, Director Klein.
Yeah, I have one update for you this evening. Last month, the JOC voted to close the adult LPN program. It wasn't an easy decision because there were students enrolled, but there weren't enough students to make it viable operationally or financially. And we thought it was in the best interest to focus on our main mission, which is high school children.
Thank you for that report. That is disappointing, but understandable. Appreciate it. IU 13, Director Murray.
No report this morning.
Okay, thank you. Legislative Liaison, Director England.
I don't really have a report so much. There are some things in the works. One of the things that I think is going to be interesting to keep an eye on, though, is the charter school reform that passed in July, and hoping for some changes there in moving forward.
Okay, thank you for the good report. PSBA, Director Bucks.
I just received an email today about an upcoming advocacy week. So it seems like they're trying to get this rolling more. I know we were doing a lot more before COVID, and it seemed like a slow start once we came out of COVID. But they are planning another advocacy week, or by they, I mean PSBA is planning another advocacy week, October 2nd through 6th, with events throughout that week. There will be in-person and virtual events. And on Wednesday, October 4th, there will be time when you can actually go to the Capitol and meet with legislators.
Great.
So stay tuned. I'm assuming that we all will get information about that.
Great, thank you. Excellent report. Any new business for the board? Okay, no new business. I would just point everybody to the dates to remember under item 19, and that brings us to the adjournment for this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Director Murray. Is there a second? Thank you, Director Klein. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of adjourning, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.